All right, welcome back to The Way We Do It. And this is Andre and talking to you from sunny California. So hope all is well. I'm coming to you as always, giving you a producer's perspective of some things that we should be out there considering because there's a lot of distractions, especially in the entertainment world. And I say that to you is because you guys, the viewers, are paying everybody's bills. So sometimes there's some hard questions to be asked, and just pose things to see what's happening. Now, subject matter of the day is, and this is I'm posing this question: Chris Rock, Kevin Hart, Mike Epps should have late night shows, and I'm posing this to NBC, CBS, and ABC, those traditional major broadcasters who have late night shows currently. And the reason why this came to me was when they were the uproar on canceling Stephen Colbert's late night on CBS, and the network it said it's for financial reasons. And typically, when you hear something like that, and as a producer myself, basically what that's meaning is the advertising revenue that's coming in isn't covering the expense of the show plus a profit that the network is comfortable with. Right. So you produce your show for $5. The advertisers who advertise during your show, that total, and these just an example. So you just get kind of understanding of this talk when they start to have these kind of conversations. And they just say all the advertising dollars for the show is $3. Right. So the network's in the hole for $2. That means every show that they air, they're losing $2. Now, they can make that up in some other parts of their programming grid where, there's something else that's really profitable and they just take that to cover it. Or they expect each show to be profitable or at least break even, right? But you probably break even is not a good scenario because you have other kind of expenses, right? For your network, hiring people, the cost of leasing your facilities, all that's got to be built into the programming that you put out there so that you got revenue coming in to cover all your hard costs and all those show costs, and then plus some kind of profit because you use the profit to invest in new things, developing the new shows, some other things, right? So you always kind of want to be in a profit mode for most of your shows. Sometimes you'll do a show that's not profitable, but it gets you the right kind of reputation that you're looking for. There are shows that are created just to get awards. They're not necessarily profitable shows, but the media and the awards system likes them. So you do those kind of shows so you can get those awards, and then those awards gets the advertisers excited about advertising on your network. And broadly, they might advertise on another show, but the show that brought the attention to the network isn't a profitable show, right? So these are just different kind of combinations that you could do, or steadfastly, they could just wait it out. Now, typically, what happens when things adjust, and in the world of broadcast, I come from a cable background, so the broadcast networks always had more money, right? So they could do a lot more things. They were the vanguards of the money, so they would have the bigger budgets, right? So bigger budgets, bigger stars, bigger contracts, bigger payouts, all so they had a lot of money. But what I think happened, and broadcast used to kind of look, kind of weird at cable because we were kind of thin in what we had to do. We just didn't have the kind of money, so that's why in the cable world, you started to have reality shows, clip shows, different types of shows because we couldn't afford to produce sitcoms, dramas, and films like broadcast because they just had more money, so we had to do other things. And then a couple things have happened over the years when the networks uh, had strikes, when the directors, the writers, whoever had strikes would shut them down. They needed to have cheap programming to kind of cover them until the strikes were over, and that's where they went into the reality television world, and consumers tolerated it. So consumers were willing to watch something that's not the same quality of before, and not to beat up on reality shows, but the whole idea of just normal things that you didn't have to be superstars, but basic things that happen in your life, and you put a camera on it, and people thought that was interesting. I know in the cable world, to me, one of the stars of that concept was when MTV did the Osbournes. It's just like voyeurism into a life of a rock star, and people were very interested in knowing the humanity of our celebrities, right? Just so what do they do day to day? Breakfast and sitting around, and you know, and cable shows were able to pull that off. One of my favorite shows growing up, I'm from Pennsylvania, and God Family Football, and I watched the show. It's probably the only reality show that I actually watched in its entirety through all of its episodes. For me, was a show called Two a Days. MTV did a show called Two a Days, and remember, and I'm in high school life at this point, coming out of high school life. So high school football was very important to me. It was very interesting, and it's cool to see a recreation of it. You know, college. I didn't play at college. I didn't play at the pro. So my high school experience of football was where I retired. That's a funny story. A friend of mine last night, I was talking to him about that. No, it wasn't even a friend of mine. It was my brother. I blame my brother on me not pursuing my college career because he invited me. Um, he went to New Mexico State University, but he had an internship in Washington D.C. And when he was there as an internship, he was going to Howard University. And when I was in high school, my brother's 5 years older than me. When I was in high school, he would invite me down to DC, and so I saw uh, Howard University life. And for those who have never been to Howard or historically black college like that, like Southern or maybe FAMU, as a young black male, oh boy, I don't know. A 16-year-old is that might be illegal to bring a 16-year-old male on campus in my case at Howard. But for those of you who are, Southern the same way, FAMU the same way, like in other words, I'm not knocking it, but that was just my experience. And so I once I saw that college life, uh, then that's when I was like, I don't have a place for football. It's going, and this just in my little humble mind. Not, I did have a high school coach that uh, wanted me to go to college. I would have gone to play football, a Division II school in Pennsylvania called Widener University, because my coach had a relationship with Billy White Shoes Johnson, who played professional football, but came out of Widener. So a lot of relationships, getting scholarships and stuff is how, who right? And just relationships on different places. I was just talking in that same conversation with no, actually, it wasn't my brother in this conversation. Man, I talk a lot, as you can kind of see. Uh, I'm in California, and I didn't know the history of Long Beach Poly. Long Beach Poly is a high school in Long Beach. And at the time, and I still think they do have the record, they placed the most NFL players in the NFL from one high school, Long Beach Poly. That's where Snoop went to school. What's that actress? There's a white actress. Oh God, what's her name? She's pretty cool. I didn't know. Uh, uh, and see, as I start talking to you guys now, I bring my second computer out. Cameron Diaz, right? So Snoop Dogg and Cameron Diaz went to this high school. Long Beach Polytech High School is its official name. Both of them went there. A lot of pros. A lot of pros came out of there. Matter of fact, let me put in I'll just grab a couple just so you just get an idea. And I'm gonna get back to my two-a-day story. Uh, some of the bigger ones: Willie McGee, Deshaun Jackson, who's now give it up for, I'm a where's my little thing? So I got love for Deshaun Jackson. So you know, Billy Green, Eagles green till I die. Uh, so and big props for him. Now that he's going to be going up there and coaching Delaware State, historical black college in that Mid Atlantic area. Um, those young people are going to learn a lot. And just to turn the subject just really quickly, but I think that these professional players who are now including HBCUs, Dion had a lot with opening that door. Uh, as long as those professionals are coming with the right interest in mind, I think is a great thing, right? Because it's always good to be able to get excellence and bring that excellence back to, because at the end of the day, it's a football field, right? 100 yards, football field, 11 on both sides, to get that kind of quality. And that's a form of giving back where, I like the charity work that professionals do, but to give back in a skill set where they can use that, not only on a football field, but in life. I think that's a pretty powerful thing. So we got to mention things as they happen, and that's just across the board. All professional athletes, if they have the opportunity to go back to their hometowns or underdeveloped places where they're now living, universities, community colleges, wherever, and they have that kind of energy, I think that's a good thing. So a lot of the bad things are happening out there. We need to encourage those. So okay, so back to two-a-days. And this kind of reality show, inexpensive. So for me, MTV's two-a-days was about Hoover High School. There's a Hoover, Alabama had a high school football program that would just, just Alabama doesn't even have professional teams. So, a lot of the energy goes back to the colleges and to the high schools. And so I can relate to that team. My high school football team didn't win as much, but high school players, you can relate to it. And so I like the fact that when they did two-a-days, the stars of the reality show stayed, the players and the students, right? It didn't. The coach was starting to try to creep up through there, but I didn't really care about the coach. I wanted to hear from players in that world, just their day to day. They're off the field. Girlfriends breaking up, just the regular things. And then they gave the remember it was about the high school football team, but they also gave a perspective of the girls at the school who had interest in them as well, and those kind of dynamics. So I thought that was cool. And it, not a lot of bells and whistles. It was just pretty straightforward. They focused on it. I never been to Hoover, Alabama, and I never been to a high octane football program like that. We all wish to have it. And so for me, it was a great way of finding out what that really looked like. And they took them all the way through to their leaving. And for Hoover players, their big place was going to University of Alabama. So if we were to do this in Pennsylvania, it would probably be, if we did 2 days in my high school, it would be like the big ticket would be going to like Penn State, right? Or possibly, University of Pittsburgh, something like that. But probably Penn State would be, it would be that. So that's the similarities. So anyway, so networks during the strikes needed some inexpensive products to put on air. and they gave you challenges and behind the scenes and growing corn, all kind of stuff. But it was intriguing because I guess at some point it was real and it took you somewhere that you'd never been to before. And the fascination about just kind of seeing that celebrities are humans, so going behind the scenes with them, some of the things that they were doing, and then started getting to where it is now, with some really, they know the cameras are there, and they're making up a lot of that stuff. So a lot of it's corny, So, but that's how it worked. And so, but I say all that to say that the fans, the viewers were watching it. And so as a network, you keep giving them what they want to watch. And if you can do it for, 3 times less than what you did it before, then as a for-profit entity, then you're gonna keep more of the profits, right? So why spend more money than they have to? If you can spend $3 where you used to spend $20 and get the same results in viewership and maybe even higher, then you keep with $3. So okay, so that went for a while. And then then COVID hit, and then the same kind of thing happened. But I think even when COVID hit, people were a little bit tired of reality shows, because the great thing about scripted programming is it kind of lends itself to your own fantasy. It doesn't remind you of the reality that you're in, and you can kind of do some escapism, right? And so I think at the end of the day, as entertainers and as people in the business of entertainment, which I consider myself a part of, that's the biggest thrust. We have my whole thing, whether it's a half hour, 2 hours, whenever I create something, I create it in a sense that I want you to escape. For a half hour of your day, you can escape to this and just have some fun, crack up. Hour of your day, that's what I love about movies, as well as getting you guys to go back to a movie theater. I haven't given up on that. There's nothing like that big screen, and just for a couple of hours, you can escape into some place. For me, growing up, it was Star Trek, it was the Planet of the Apes, it was just these places. I didn't really like the Omen, Exorcist. That was a little too scary for me. But just to go somewhere else, right, and just use your mind and just take me somewhere where I couldn't physically go myself, but now in this great story that I'm there. And so that costs money to do that, and it takes you finding talent to do that. But at the end of the day, it's about that, right? So, and then the cheats start to happen when you just find formats that worked before, and you just recycle them and recycle them and recycle them till it gets boring, right? And so for those who and I watched a lot of television when I was growing up. So, and now I'm leading you to this late night thing. So late night is just that. It's people who are ending their days. They're not really ready to go to sleep. Is there something that you can consume later on? Kids are asleep, or you're single adult, but you just want to see something. Like, how do you entertain that type of person? And that's when the late nights came in, late night shows, right? Just for that in mind. So, and it attracted musicians and artists, and it was kind of fun things happening at night, right? There was political banter at the time with it, because it was kind of interesting, politics. But remember, in 2025, because of the explosion of social media and all these platforms, political diatribes are not as special anymore, because when you turn on your computer, you hit your phone, you're getting news, political information all day long. So what can a host or a talent do at night about that you've heard since you woke up? I mean, I have it now where I have certain channels where it takes me to other countries, and I'm hearing stuff from other countries, news around the world. I watch a financial show, because I was told when I was in college, everything works on how the money is moving. The whole Wall Street and all that, how the money moves, you got to find out how the money is moving around the world. If they're putting money in the semiconductors and they're saying something else to you on the news, ignore the news, because it's where that money is being moved. So I learned that lesson a long time ago. And, I kind of said when I did a show like this, I tell you places and things to go. So I watch Bloomberg News, their financial news, right? If you have the opportunity to watch Bloomberg, just watch even the things that you like is going to show up. You got an Apple iPhone, they're going to talk about those iPhones on that, how to build them. New ones are coming out, technology. They're going to talk to you. They talk to you about fashion because everything is financed, right? So your stores that you go to, and if you want to start investing in stuff, invest in stuff that you already purchased, and then just understand how the world works around the world, the markets, the European markets, and the Asian markets, and the African markets, and the American markets. All of these markets are all interconnected because we all buy and sell stuff, and then just how these experts, these analysts will kind of tell you, soybeans are down, what's going to happen to corn because we're looking to go back to sugar in a lot of our drinks, and that corn syrup, the high fructose corn syrup. America is like, nah, we don't want to do that anymore. We want you to go back to sugar, rather than sugar cane. So you can imagine, stop selling corn, start selling sugar cane or making sugar cane. Can't make that here. I got to make it in other part of the world. So, and again, that's just you just checking out and watching stuff. So I say that just say that just to how we start to digest information. And the challenge now is, how do we entertain people? Because what they're saying is the late night numbers are down across the board. And I specifically just focus on the top 3 here that have shows, because it's a good indicator. So when I heard that they let Colbert's show go because of financial purposes, and people are saying it's not, then but overall late night television is down. And why is it down? And what about it is not attracting viewers? Now, I'm gonna age myself again because I don't watch late night television. I just watch television at night, whatever's interesting to me, right? So if it's 11 o'clock at night and I want to see a horror movie, or I want to see a foreign movie, it's late night, but I'm not designating to a late night show for political topics. It's not, because by the time I get to late night, I've already know what the political topics of the day, because I turned on my phone and I turned on my computer. So, and this is just me talking to me. Music, well, I'm on a YouTube channel. I go to YouTube and listen to any music I want. So there's nothing special about a music artist. And most artists now tell all their business all day long through their social media. So what is it, them on the couch, that's giving me that I don't already know? Right? So this is just, I'm just, in my mind, letting you know why I think why those numbers are down, because there's just no interest in that. So do you change it? And then why do you hold on to a structure that's just not working anymore? Right? Why are you just holding on? A lot of times that's just a habit. The machine is just so big, and there's too many people involved financially in just maintaining the status quo than making good programming. And then that's when you get stuck. And then at a certain point, it's just not tolerable anymore. Now, in the case of CBS, they're a part of the Viacom family. They're about to get sold. The new owners, just like if I was a new owner, I'm looking at everything that you're doing. I'm looking at, you're giving me all your numbers, and I'm seeing what kind of cost you got, and why you're doing that. Why is this so expensive? What's the return? Like for me as a former budget director, I'll look at that show and I'm like, how much does it cost? How much revenue is that show bringing in? And then is there any other circumstances that is important for us to look at as to why we're doing that show? Is that show, one of those warm and fuzzies where, because of it, we're able to get awards for things, and that opens up other things, and that opens up things for other shows. Is it a promotional vehicle where that's our contact? Because a lot of times late night shows, that's where your film and TV stars would come to promote their new shows. So that becomes a promotional vehicle, and so that particular film house might write a check because their stars are coming on to promote. So the promotion monies come in and invest. But at the same time, we have to do it where there's a profit in mind. So I'm looking at all those things, right? And then can we tolerate that? And I don't have any proof of this, but I'm like, there's probably a combination of things, but I would venture to say that, and you see it. I mean, late night it is dropping off, and they'll never disclose, they'll never tell you how much their late night shows cost because, and they don't have to. That's their business. But in publicly traded places, that information has to be available. So if you dig in public entities, you can find out what things are costing. And then to me, it's real simple. How much does it cost? How much revenue is it that's covering those costs, and where those come from, right? And so talent, all of those people. I forgot what show they lost their band. The band was too expensive. They had to cut out their band because it was too expensive. And I'm like, you know what? That makes sense that they're cutting out their band for their late night show. If costs, they got to get their costs involved. And when you're never really thinking about costs, when the network just saying, just do whatever you need to do, then it comes a time when you now have to watch every dollar. Then that's when you have to be agile and make things happen, right? And so I'm projecting to you. I was like, okay, if it is where it is now. And you have the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, you have the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and you have Jimmy Kimmel Live, right? So I'm just throwing out, okay. And this is just to me, the last time that I had fun late night, other than watching just other late night stuff, was Arsenio Hall show. Right? He brought a certain kind of energy that was just addictive, and it was fun, right? And people are drawn to it. And I think we're back in that climate right now, where audiences need something fresh. So I'm just throwing out into the universe because I think I like to throw stuff out into the universe. And I picked these particular stand-up comedians because me, I got a bias for stand-up comedians because they have a different kind. And again, late night is just not one show. So I'm talking to you about the three majors, right? And so I looked for stand-up comedians that, yes, they're stand-up, they still do their thing, but they got little different energies, right? And so and they kind of move a little differently. And my three that I picked, and you can pick whoever you want, but the three I picked, Chris Rock, Kevin Hart, and Mike Epps, embodies that showmanship at night that's going to be a little different because remember, networks got to compete with each other, so you just can't have the same AI created hosts in each at each network, right? They got to come with a little different. You can't grab everybody, but I think for me to bring late night as a complete format back, you can't do it with just one show. The whole late night and the broadcasters have dominated this place before, and here's an opportunity for them to bring the heat back, right? So I mean, think about it. A lot of us Americans are very sports oriented area, right? And it's like when one team gets and I'm just going to use the quarterback because that seems just to be so a team gets a quarterback that has a different kind of skill set than the quarterbacks you had before. Nothing wrong with the older quarterbacks, like pocket quarterbacks, right? You had the pocket quarterbacks, and then you found this kid who was a pocket quarterback but could run like a running back. And then you put him out there on the field, against defenses that were just basically built around a pocket quarterback and how to defend a pocket quarterback. And now all of a sudden, this quarterback is running past you. It's faster than one of your receivers or one of your defensive backs, and you're like, whoa. So, and I'm the owner of that team. Well, if I'm the owner of another team, I'm like, I got to find one of those. Right. So I'm gonna scrape in. I'm looking in colleges. I'm gonna find one. Then if another smart owner, it's like, well, I can't let them. It's all competition, right? Network television, broadcast television, cable television, streaming, it's all competitive, right? It's all competition, right? We're competing for eyeballs. We're competing for you, the viewer, to watch our show. And so the smart producers, smart network folks is going to be looking at, okay, well, how do we, as opposed to just throwing the whole concept away, because that's what this whole topic for today for me is about. I don't want to throw away late night, because people are up late night, right? And I don't, it just switches up. So there's always going to be people up late night, just like there's always, like, vampires, people who like to hang out, who are just more creative at night. Like, I'm creative at night, so that's why I joke and say I'm a vampire. Then during the day, you got daytime shows. People who like to do, the daytime talk shows. That attracts a certain kind of audience, right? And you kind of know, kind of a trend. Daytime for a long time tended to have female hosts, and nighttime tended to have male hosts. Well, that's just not. Somebody just didn't flip a coin and just come up with that concept, right? You had more female viewers during the day looking for topics that a female host has an expertise in. There's a better kind of relationship. And then the males had the kind of like the reverse. At night, they were attracting a little more of a male audience. And so you had those kind of balances kind of going. So that's when you had an Oprah during the day and an Arsenio at night. And it wasn't just like luck that these things come. That's watching viewership, watching how people are moving, how many people, what are they doing, and why are they watching during those times of the day? And then you start to adjust. Now it's changed a little bit because just there's a 24-hour cycle of entertainment, but it's still kind of, if you still kind of look at what's happening during the day, women dominate the hosting during the day, and then the men dominate the hosting at night, right? And it's not just like, oh, we just want to separate the genders. No, it's just they're tracking eyeballs. So if you have a network that has a lot of sci-fi on it, that means that network attracts a lot of people interested in sci-fi, and they're not interested in something else, and vice versa. Hallmark Channel, the love stories, I remember I was watching Hallmark Channel and they had about 200, I'm just joking, but they had so many Christmas specials. They had a Christmas special. I was like, wow, this is people getting locked in malls and over the neighbor's house. I was like, I didn't even know there's so many ways to talk about Christmas, but they're hugely popular. And that audience just eats them up, right? So, it's like a vegan channel. I'm a meat eater, so, I'm not going to be hanging out on a vegan channel, right? And vice versa, right? My vegan friends love them to death, but I need to eat food with parents. And, when they're done, we move on, or I just make sure they have what they need on their plate and I have what I have on my plate. But I will give it to my vegan friends that they have convinced me in a good way to add more vegetables to my plate. So I appreciate them for that. I mean, that's where, see, we don't have to be like, adversaries. Now, I won't put them in a certain situation. Like, say, for example, some of my vegan friends, if they can't even stand the smell of meat, then see now, and I'm your friend, I can't. I'm not going to put you in that environment, right? Because I'm your friend first, right? So I'm not going to do that. But let's say they can, but I'm not going to be like, here, try this. Now they can, I allow them to let me try their food because it's vegetables, right? But that vegetable is going to be added to what I'm doing, right? And so that was a good thing for me to add more vegetables. But I'm not gonna, and I'm not gonna knock anybody who is vegan, but you know, it's not that's not in the DNA of my family. We're meat eaters on both sides, and it is what it is. I remember my sister tried to go vegan and almost and uh, she got sick, right? And the doctor had said to her, I don't know this is how far across the board this is, but this is just me giving you a personal opinion of someone I know, that there's a protein that's in meat and there's a protein in vegetables that's similar, right? And some people can tolerate switching off that meat protein to that vegetable protein and their bodies will accept it. And some people don't. And in my case, my sister, it didn't work, right? She was vegetarian, her eyes were getting dark, and and I have one sister and one brother. So me and my brother, man, we don't do this anymore, full disclosure. But back in the day, man, we just knock it down, Jack Daniels and steaks and just going for it, right? So we had a horrendous eating habit and diet. And then my sister's doing all the right things and she's looking terrible, right? And so I was like, Bonnie, my sister's name is Bonita, but we call her Bonnie. I said, you're not looking too good. You the vegan and she ended up going to doctor. That's what he said. So she just has to have, no, she doesn't have to have a large quantity of meat, but that meat protein for whatever happens, in my understanding, that's genetic. And I kind of think of my mother's side, they're meat eaters, but a lot of my uncles were fishermen, so it was meat and fish. And then my father's side, my mom's from Virginia, so near Newport News, or she's from what's called Middlesex, which is near Tappahannock, and down there where water's where you can make your living. So I think all my uncles at one point had boats, and they would commercially boats, and so that side of family was big fish eaters, seafood, especially hard shell crabs, oysters, what was called trout, and there's a common fish down there called a spot. It's got a little spot on it. They call it spots. So and then with a little bit of meat, from time to time. But then my dad's side, they're from South Carolina. They're red beans and rice people, and they're meat people. So they beef and hog and red beans and rice, and so to me, it's like you are half of your father and half of your mother genetically, right? Or DNA. I know hopefully we're not challenging that. We're challenging a whole lot of stuff nowadays, but like some basic science is like, come on now. Now, as long as you know who your real father is, who your real mother is, those genes, you get half from one, half from the other. Boom, that makes you. So you're just half of these two people. And they're half of it just keeps going on and going on and going on. So anyway, so so that's how I get into looking at things and just sharing things with different people. So late night for me, what if we just pose a new question and close your eyes and think about that? I mean, can you and this is everybody, because all three of these people are entertainers. They're funny people, and because what I love about stand-ups is they know how people are moving, and because they're out on the road themselves, they get a good picture. I believe that viewers would think of them as authentic, and then when they recreate things, whether it's sketches or little mini versions of monologues, artists that they bring on, or just engage. Now, as well, me personally, they have to do it in front of a live studio audience, because that's the one thing for me about stand-up comedians that to me they're at their peak is when they can feed off of real people. So I wouldn't just have them do a cold in front of just a cold set. Now I need them in front of a live studio audience and just let them go. Just like the old days, it's like, hey, me and producing it, I'm like, you got an hour, given whatever the constraints are. Maybe we'll look at some old school stuff. I think, nostalgia is an interesting thing. I tend to think we're in a 1950s kind of a vibe now in America as far as entertainment. And what do I mean by that? The 1950s is where a time where you had to get back to the people. Artists were on the road. You notice that now, artists, you got to get back on the road. You got to get on a bus. You got to go city to city. Comics are back on the road. You kind of get out there to kind of know what not the algorithm is saying about people, but what people are saying about people. And for stand-ups, is like then how to make that fun and funny and to entertain again, right? Escapism and how witty and crafty you are with it. They're always, comedians always do things political, right? But it's just how they move at night. And to me, one of the best medicines is humor, because we're all pretty stressed out right now. It's pretty tense. So hit me up in my comment section, or hit me up at the Way We Do It TV, because I think I need to get more of your concepts about what you think should happen at night. And remember, also, where before we used to watch television, and a lot of us will still watch television at home, but a lot of you are going to watch television on your phones because that's all you have. You'll just turn your phone this way and watch it. So 2025 producers have to be conscious that whatever they're programming has to fit in this kind of a box, right? So you can't have those, for example, you can't have these wide shots of little people, right? Where if you're watching something on the phone, it's got to be intimate, right? Because you only have but so much phone space. So you have to be sensitive. And some of you, I don't, let's see, Instagram, y'all bounce it this way, look at it that way. I just prefer to what's that, landscape as opposed to portrait, portrait, landscape, flip it to the side, but be sensitive about how people are watching it. And I see, young people, they put the headphones on, got their cell phone, and now they can watch something late night. And then I just have to be sensitive as a producer that how I shoot it has to be shot in a way that I can capture a home audience with a bigger screen, a flat screen TV, as well as someone who's going to use a mobile device for their entertainment, because that's just the time of the day. That's just where we are. My YouTube channel, for example, the majority of the people who watch on YouTube, and that's why I tend to keep this kind of a shot when I talk, when I do my lives, is because a lot of them watch it on their mobile, right? So I try to keep self-contained. You notice my hands, I try to keep things in here and just have these kind of conversations and keep it to a point where you can have that kind of discussion. So there's a lot of other kind of topics that are happening, and just personally, in America, especially, Black people, African Americans, FBAs, ADOS, whatever you want to call them. And this is for non-Black people, that inside of our camp, there's just some reshuffling and some playing things out as to how we want to present ourselves to the world. For me, I don't really care how, what the label is. I use the term African American because for me, it solves the label that I'm interested in, that there's both an African experience and an American experience in my tribe, and that it's unique to America. So there's a uniqueness, but I'm not going to ignore where great grandparents came from, right? So, but for me, it gives a destination to me, but it also separates it in enough that no, this is a unique group of people, and so it's hyphenated specifically with that in mind. And so, but I don't have a problem with other people if they want to, but I'll never shout someone down for using that label, because I know in the beginning and in the end, the whole struggle is just there's an identity thing in America because of some money's owed, and when money's when money's come to the table, you got to make sure the right people, the right plaintiffs are in the courtroom, right? So there's this like, no, this is a unique payment for a unique group of people that had a unique experience in this place called the United States of America. And there's a check to be written for that, right? And it's in the books, the backstory of who they are. For your young people, just have them, ask them why did they create the 14th Amendment? There's a unique group of people here, then there's a check owed. Now, however they want to, it's still owed. Just like I just paid my credit card off today. No, I didn't pay it off, but I paid some of my bill. My credit card people was like, yeah, okay, you paid a piece of that bill, but you still owe that other part, right? It's like, you can give me $20, but you still owe me that, right? So that's not gonna go away. And what's scandalous about that is not only is it not gonna go away, but we're gonna add something to that one until we get all of our money back. That's what a credit card company is. And I'm not mad at a credit card company because remember, they gave me credit, so they advanced me money to do some stuff with it, for a fee. And that was our rule. That's what I signed up for the credit card to do. So they're like, oh yeah, you can give it to me in pieces, but at some point, you got to give me, or it's just gonna keep going on and on and on and on. And that's what I look at when people are discussing reparations in America. You do your homework, do your research. That there is, and remember, this is a legal thing, right? So this is something that the courts have to identify who the proper plaintiff is for this allocation of resources, right? Because they have to be in a room, and there's just a group of people who this happened to. If it didn't happen to you, you don't get a check. It's as simple as that, right? And so in doing that, there's been some trying to adjust the title of who we are just to make sure that happens. But for me, there's always been a misnomer of what African American means in general, but it is unique enough. And I think I saw something. I think yesterday with the census, and the census is using African American or Black, and it's just starting to delineate some stuff. So the feds, they know that they got to separate because this is coming, right? Because our president mentioned 14th Amendment was for Black people, and then it's like, well, who are those Black people? Now he used the term Black, but we know that class of people, and it's in the books all over the place. It's in our legalese, and we all know it's due. It's just that they don't want to pull that trigger and write that check, man. And I guess just like anyone else is like, you can hold on to money and you don't have to pay it, and they ain't trying to pay it. But you know what? Time's a funny thing. I mean, like who knew? I mean, who knew we'd have a Black president? Whether you call Black or not, like who knew? The day before that happened, people were like, yeah. And then it happened. We're like, damn. And now we have a whole generation of young people who grew up with a Black president. All young people. So to them, it's like, it's normal. To a lot of us, it's like, whoa, that's different. Right. So, things move sometimes slower than what we want. So, but as long as we just got to do things without malice. But I do. Black people in America, we're just not taking the same things that we took before, right? And so, and we're not, and as far as I can see, we're not doing it violently, but we're just not doing that dance anymore. It's like, you know what? Help, help, help. Now it's time to be like, we give, and then that's ain't giving back. So now we're like, well, time out. Let's just put this on pause. Let's do a reset. And just like America, let's renegotiate all of these relationships. Let's just make sure. And for me, it's funny because you see how I kind of take things. I'm like, let's renegotiate all of these ally relationships, and let's just make sure we're on the same page. And let's make sure certain facts are a part of it's just like any kind of negotiation. You got to start with certain kind of facts on the table. that we both agree that these are the facts. And then we move forward into some other things. So to me, that's what we're in 2025. That's what I'm witnessing when I see all these things on YouTube. But at the same time, because remember, I'm in the entertainment world, I'm like, okay, all of us that are in entertainment and want to watch quality program and fun stuff, and even unquality program is still fun. I mean, because it's all subjective what you're interested in or what you're not, right? So I'm not beating up people on that. But what I do see is when events like this happens, this is where the critical eye I want us to have. Okay, so something's wrong with late night. Okay, we see who's in late night now, and we see how they deliver late night, and it's not delivering the numbers it used to, and it's expensive. So my whole thing is like, okay, are there artists out there that you can come give it a good fresh? Sometimes you got to reload, right? Sometimes you got to go. I mean, we're starting to get back into football season, so sometimes it's time for you to bring some new people in, right? So bring some folks in, stir it up a little bit. Sometimes you just got to shake it up. You just never know. These owners are kind of going through a lot of this. It's like, okay, we just came out of basketball, and you got the Oklahoma and Indiana. There's the top two teams. Now, remember, I'm born in Philly, so I'm growing up where it was, to me, the two beacons, Boston and LA, but I'm from Philly, so I mean I'm always fighting for my little Sixers. But you had Detroit, you had some of these basic building block teams that just were iconic, right? And it was just the whole Magic Johnson, Larry Bird thing. I mean, that just to me was the epitome. They did it twice. They did it in college when Magic was at Michigan State and Bird was at Indiana State, and they did it again when Magic's with the Lakers and Bird's with Boston. So it's like, boom, boom, just took it up. Now, I also think that this is what happened with Caitlin and Angie Reese, and they just dropped the ball on that one, right? Because, man, that to me, I when I saw these two young ladies, I was like, that's Magic and Bird. And I'm my degree's in marketing, so I'm like, how many times are you going to get this? I mean, this comes like once in a lifetime. I mean, Larry Bird and Magic Johnson came once. Caitlin Clark, Angie Reese, to me, and they were starting to kind of market that properly in college, but then someone just dropped the ball because they didn't know what they were doing. Because that, in America, that, when race kicks in, but you can use race in a positive way because it was nothing it was all positive that came out of Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and they were right kind of ambassadors to it. Angie Reese and Caitlin Clark, great young ladies, doing it the right way, right? And they could have been that next step, but someone messed that ball up, right? And so now, because of Magic and Bird, that's where you get Michael Jordan type to come out of that opening of a gate and took the NBA into the stratosphere. And now the WNBA is scrambling for that. And so I was like, yeah, you gotta, that's just another case of analyzing the market and seeing what's happening, seeing what's happening. You don't have to start it from scratch. But again, let's getting back to late night with Chris Rock, Kevin Hart, and Mike Epps. Y'all can see that, can't you? That'll work. Now, y'all might be mad you got to switch channels, but that's competition. But, everybody is not necessarily, because the reason why I picked these three, their humor and their POV is a little bit different, right? So I would venture to say that when you have these three options, you're not going to scramble. It's like, oh, I got to watch all three at the same time. Most people are going to go into one of these three camps. And guess what happens? More people are watching late night, and stand-up comedians are going to present their show for the biggest group of people possible to have fun with it, right? They're not going to get into any kind of segregating lane, right? It's comedians. They're just like, They're like street poets, as some people would say, and they're going to find talent, guests and people that just crazy things are just fun, so that when you watch it at night, it doesn't feel like it's a format, right? It's just like, wow, this at 11 o'clock, man, and say your person is Mike. It's like, Mike Epps, man, I gotta 11 o'clock. I don't know what he's gonna talk about, what he's gonna do tonight, or who's gonna be on there. And that also, to me, is a part of what I think gets viewership back up. Let's not let everybody know what's happening, in advance. We're so into social media marketing that you pretty much tell everybody what's gonna happen. And then that tunes people out. But what's more exciting is that when they don't know what's happening, that's what, for me in film, that's what I like about horror, is the greatest horror ones is you think you know what's going to happen, and also, bam, something else happens. There might be some little teases. You might hear something, some sounds, boom, boom, boom. It's like Jaws, right? It's like you barely saw the great white, but you knew that great white was somewhere in there, man. He was like, man, and black people like, boy, get out the water, and like go around. It's like, don't go around that corner, right? Because you know what's happening. Jason pull out that little knife, So use that. So now you don't have to constantly say who's coming on tonight. You got to tune in at 11 o'clock, and you're like, oh my God, it's Julia Roberts, Oh my God, that's Clint Eastwood's daughter. You just, those comedians are going to do stuff like that because that builds up that anticipation. Just like in their shows, when they come to your town, they're funny people, but they're going to hold back some stuff for the stage. So this is my shot for you guys to get something new, and maybe when you follow them, send it out to them, put it out to them. Hey, if we put out in the universe that things like this can happen, and I'm giving it to you from perspective as opposed to wishful thinking, and I'm just already saying, these three individuals come from and again, Chris Rock, New York guy, Kevin Hart, Philly guy, Mike Epps, he's from the Midwest somewhere, right? Isn't Mike Epps from the Midwest? I want to say, where's Mike Epps from? Just a different. I want to say Cincinnati, but no, I don't want to mess it up. Let me find out where Mike Epps is from. What does it say? Mike Epps is from Indiana, Indianapolis, Indiana. So that's three totally different kind of energies, and they're gonna bring that to the table. Totally three different types of energies. They're all stand-ups. They all entertain us, and they've all done film. They have all done television as well too. So they've done film, they've done television, they've done stand-up. So they are multi-talented and multi-genre to have those kind of experiences, to talk to anybody who comes by about those things. And just because they're out there in the world, they're constantly in airports, they're constantly greeting people, they're constantly meeting people. They're going to have a very good dial on the temperament, the temperature. And that's what I like about stand-up comedians who are active in the craft. They are on the ground. They know what's really happening, between cities. So if you're in LA and you're in New York, there's a whole lot of towns and cities between those two places if you were to travel back and forth, right? It's a whole lot of America. And what is real America on the ground as opposed to how we project America? You have talent like this, and now you have three. And so now this way, all networks, I know CBS, ABC, and NBC, you ain't trying to hear from me, but I'm just going to put it out there anyway. Here's three different ways to add to late night. And I know you got contractual things like that, but then, hey, then do them later than late night, but get them on. and let them do their thing and let them bring back your viewers and expand out and that's some fun and let's just do what we're supposed to do in the world of entertainment. Let's entertain folks. These talents sitting out there, they exist, and I think it'll be great. So you know me, I try not to do too much more than an hour, but again, as I see topics and other topics that people are doing that doesn't need my subject matter to, you can solve those things. I tend to stay into the entertainment world, and humor and horror is kind of my thing, but I always want to give it to you from a perspective of a producer and how these things operate. So when you hear this kind of information out there that you might ask, and maybe in some of these blogs you might ask about, well, we know kind of what viewership is on those networks, and you see the viewership is down. You might want to see what viewership used to be. And then as well, and it's a big factor because it's just the reality of the world that we live in now, is costs. Like, how much does this cost? I know they don't. They talk a lot about Stephen Colbert and what's happened to him, but I don't really hear how much he makes. Right. And so when they say it is a financial reason, and then I don't hear what the host makes, and then the host, and then everybody else is making some dollars. Is that balancing out? Is it profitable still? And I think all of those hosts are going to be all right financially, right? Because they got more money than my host got when I was on BET, for sure, right? So let's just do a reset. Let's, you want to be competitive. I don't care how much acquisitions and buying up other stuff happens. The challenge is going to still be, and I see a lot of this now. I saw something crazy. A comedian was mentioning he saw a poster of they're trying to do Sanford and Son again. I was like, so you got a lot of this going back into the wells and getting old intellectual property out and then recycling it and think that's going to do it. No. We know what's going to do it. Fresh ideas, and again, I'm not original is a funny thing because formats to me are formats. Talk show format, sitcom format. These are just structures, just like houses, right? 2-floor house, split levels, you got certain, but inside of all those houses, you can make all kind of creative things. So there's nothing, act 1, act 2, act 3. Okay, I'm gonna make my 3 act the first act and my second act the third act, but there's still acts, right? Like in a play, act 1, act 2, act 3. Some plays just have 1 act, but it's an act, right? So that's not changing, right? But what you put in it changes. What you emphasize changes it. Does your show need a show opener? Or you just go right in? Do you have to end your show with music? Do you have to have it at all? So all of these kinds of things. But the lazy way is just to take something, blow the dust off of it, bring some new talent, and do the same thing that you did 40 years ago. No, that's not. You want to bring a talent show back? It's a talent show, but it's a 2025 version of a talent show. You got to dance? You want to have a dance show? It's a 2025 version of a dance show. And who's the dancers? Who's the populations in it? Is it the same kind of a music? Is there another kind of music today that's starving for attention, just like music back in the 40s and 50s, where young white kids were getting exposed to Black music? And they're like, whoa, what is this? Like, what is that of today? Like, whoa, what is this? To the degree, when you do your history, those white kids were listening to that music unbeknownst to their parents and even in defiance of their parents. Right? They're like, whoa, who's this Little Richard? And this long time, what is this? And they liked it. And they were like, yo, wait. So what is that of today? Like, what is that sound? As a producer, that's what I'm thinking about. Is there another intrigue about a different group of people who are performing or doing something else? For a while, it was just kind of like, in America, it's kind of black and white. Is that just is there other audiences or other groups? You got Asians out there, you got Hispanics out there, you got the indigenous people out there. Talent is everywhere, right? And let the best talent roll, right? It's just like, let's not keep recycling the same ones, because we all started somewhere, right? So that's my thinking of in this great challenge that we are in now. This great challenge of there's so much information out there. There's so much entertainment out there. It's like, well, there's so much out there. What are we going to do? Fresh ideas always work. And when you take the business politics out of it, and if networks are going to survive, they're going to have to open up who comes into the office to pitch ideas to them. And they're going to have to reset the structures that did that in the past. They're going to have to relook at their middlemen who are bringing people to them. And I say that respectfully, because I grew up in producing where my boss was like, you, Andre, showrunner of the show, have to watch every video of every comic that potentially can get on the show. And you can't just delegate that to senior producers or minor producers to do that, and then let them bring you the top 10. Like, oh, because I ain't got time for this. I'll just say, hey, you guys do it. I'll take see us lazy. Right. And see, and that's where, when it's all big money and you got a audience that has no options, you can do that. But you can't do that no more. So what does it take from the people at the top? They got to do the work again. So my challenge, I remember and I'm going to shut up after this. I remember when I was in business school at Howard, they told me about a story where a new executive, I think it was UPS, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think it was UPS, new executive, maybe like a new CEO of UPS came on board. It's a huge corporation. And one of the first things that the CEO did was he drove around in one of the trucks with a driver. The brown trucks. CEO of corporation, he's side seat, co-pilot in the truck, because United Parcel Service, what is their business? Moving packages from point A to point B. And the predominant way they moved that package was in a truck. Warehouse, truck, customer. And who was in that truck? A driver, human being, driving that truck. So what does CEO do? If I want to understand this business, I'm going to sit in that truck and I'm going to see how this works. And that's the nature of our business. So my challenge with entertainment, the nature of our business, is how do we entertain people? It's folks trying to make it through the day, get a little entertainment in their life. Who are they? Where are they? And if your particular channel has a certain kind of needs, what do you need to do? And who is in your way of you getting the best ideas up? What kind of filters has your structure created that you probably inherited, and you were trained to think that that's the way they did it, that you would never in your own organization listen to the receptionist? You're a major studio, and you walk right past the receptionist up to your executive suites with your VPs and do some analysis, and you walk right past a 19-year-old female, for example, and you're scratching your head about how do I get young females to watch our network? And you walk right past the receptionist, who's a 19-year-old female who's working part-time, going to school, and this is her part-time job. And on weekends, she's hanging out with her little friends. They get together, they do the little Chipotle thing, and maybe go see a movie together. It's just, if you're in California, maybe save up their little dollars to go to what's the Coachella, or go to the Barbie movie, and you walk right past them. And that's the person that you want to talk to. And sometimes I'll even make it even worse. You wake up, You go downstairs, you have breakfast with your family, and your 17-year-old daughter is on the way to school. She goes to school. Maybe mom takes her in the electric car, go to school, and you take the other electric car, go to work. And you didn't ask her anything. And then you go to a network, go to the top floor, and then you ask all these adults, how do we attract tween girls to our network? Or, like for me, what I like to do a lot of times is take public transportation. Just regular clothes, just get on the metro. I would do this, and I think I'm not going to be able to do it this year when I go home for the holidays. When I go to Yadin, I would always take public transportation. We have what's called the L, that the inner city train. It would take you from where I live through West Philadelphia into downtown. And I would always, and then there was a Macy's in which are closing. So there was a Macy's in downtown Philadelphia. And I would not shop. I would do no shopping until I got home for the holidays. And I was raised Christian, so I got two things that I had to do: get a tree, because we always had a fresh, real tree. Had to get a tree, and I did all my shopping while I was at home. And this happened in 2 days. One day for the tree, one day for shopping. So it kept my stuff moving, right? But the reason why I did that is and then I drove to where you could get on the train. So where I'm in Delaware County, I would go from Yadin to what's called Upper Darby. I'd park at Upper Darby. There's a parking lot there. Then I would get on the train and take that train to downtown Philadelphia, and then take that train back to Upper Darby, then get in my car and then go home, right? So, but why did I do that? Because when I'm on the train, I'm getting, I'm on the West Coast for most of my this time now since I've been out here. But I got a good dose of Philly life because I was just around regular Philly people, people who, take the train to work, and I'm the train is such that it's above ground for a while in West Philadelphia, and like in a bridge kind of environment, and then it goes underground towards when it's starting to get to Center City, and then I get off at Benjamin Franklin. I get off at the main kind of circle, or with the rest of people, and I kind of walk maybe 2 more blocks to get to Macy's. But now, so I'm getting regular folks from West Philly getting on and off. You're seeing how they're dressed, what they're wearing, just their vibe. I get off on downtown. I kind of get a little taste of how people who are working downtown, how they're moving, how they're dressed, who they are. And I do my walking around when I do my shopping. So I'm just being observant. So I'm getting a good dose of people, everyday people just doing their thing, who they look like, how they dressed. I remember one time when I went home and everybody was still playing CDs on their headsets. And I was like, you know what? We can't give up these CDs just yet, because even though we have a particular group of people that have upgraded and to listen to music differently, I saw a whole lot of people still have a CD player with headsets. I'm like, we're just going to ignore all of them just for the top end people who have moved on to something else. I'm like, see, that's where you make a mistake. And the only reason why I knew that is because I was out there and I watched it. I saw it for myself. See it for yourself. I'm developing a show for high schoolers. Just like, remember I did the MTV 2-a-days where I focused on that. I have a bias for that, so I want to do a show. I'm doing a high school show with that in mind, right? A high school teen show, but it's written, right? So it's scripted, but I want the POV to be on high schoolers, because I just think it's cool to have the high schoolers be the stars of the show. And it's just about high school life, right? It's not after school and all kind of stuff bad things you can kind of get into, because there's plenty of shows that show that. But I'm like right in high school, where the most important things when you're in high school, especially if you enjoyed high school, it's your friends, you're in class, the lockers, the cafeteria. I mean, just on campus, and anything our reality when you're on campus. When you're on campus, it's not about your parents, it's not about the world, it's not about the government. It's just about your school, the dynamics inside of your school, and then possibly, just depending on what type of school you had, where the external forces come from. And like my school, because we were kind of sports oriented, it's the rival schools, right? And so it just depends on what basketball season has a certain kind of energy going through the school. Football season has a certain kind of energy going through the school. So, and that, and you lived your life with your friends in those kind of immediate worlds. And so I wanted to recreate that because I think that's universal. I don't care if you grew up in Nebraska, you grew up in Liberty City, Miami, you grew up in Ninth Ward, Houston, you grew up in the East Bay. If it's a high school, I always joke with people, it's like, if your high school got lockers and you can open them up and you got that little blank part where you put stuff there, man, and if you don't have that, you should. I mean, I'm just, astounded how many kids in high school don't have a good time in high school. Right. And I think maybe we just need, again, remember how you got to redress stuff? Well, let's go back as adults and see what's there. Like, what are they missing? Because they're going to spend more time there than with their own families, when you're there. And just depending on how it moves. Like, what is the activities? Do they have like the morning, microphone where the people tell you the announcements of the day? You remember the old school Grease when the little lady was in there? Just that whole thing. So that's for another episode of the way we do it in concepts. But today I just wanted to challenge you and just throw out in the universe. Say, okay, late night, big television. You got a late night problem? Hey, Andre here. I'm here to help you, man. I'm telling you. Each one of you, I'm not even gonna have a bias. And again, this extends to other people who want to have a late night. So Amazon, you want to have a late night. Apple, you want to have a late night. Netflix, you want to have a late night. I'm just gonna throw it out with y'all too, man. Hey, Chris Rock, Kevin Hart, Mike Epps, you put them in the net night. I'm not a manager of any of these people. I'm not their agents or anything. I'm just a producer who just kind of understands that if you want to make things pop, and it's not about money, it's just being about creativity and people that are out there and make people have happy. Now, my biases, I am very pro stand-up comedian, man, woman. I was watching this white lady. She was talking about She was talking about how white women age, and she was making this analogy of driving and getting up on exits when you're a white girl and you're in your 20s, when you're a white girl in your 30s, when you're a white girl in your 40s, and then when you're a white girl in your 50s. Hilarious. And see, for me, I would want her to be on a bigger platform than what I saw. I think it was like someone put her on their Instagram page. No, see, these people are already out there. I would just love to be able to have a bigger format. And then, because I don't know any better, and I'm going to book her because she's hilarious. You see what I'm saying? So they're out there. They're still doing their thing. And I'm not a white female, and I was cracking up, right? Because it's just so, but you can hear, and it was done in front of a live audience. So you can hear the audience laughing. I'm like, see, that's what I'm talking about. You don't have to look at me and say, okay, Andre's just going to just have black comedians. No, man. Funny is funny. It's different types of funny, but let the audience choose. But get out of, did you notice I didn't ask if she had a manager? I didn't ask what agency she's from or who she knew, if she had to give up her child in some kind of, Illuminati to become a star. No. I saw her on Instagram. She's funny. And I'm like, get her. We got to get back to executives like that. And I guarantee you're going to get huge viewers and people who didn't think that they could like someone because they didn't look like them. That's the beauty of funny. And you're cracking them. And then now you're waiting for next week or the next day just to see it again. And again, this whole subject matter, did I down anyone today? Did I get into someone? Oh, you ain't this, or blah, 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 blah. Did I do any of that? No. I'm about solutions in the things that I know. So I'm about solutions in this kind of entertainment game, right? And where I saw something in the marketplace. Hey, late nights having some issues, you canceling some folks. Let's reload, right? They're not going to uncancel what they did. I mean, and it's probably some stuff we might not ever know. But just from the things that they were saying, and just from a little bit of history, I could find myself is late night viewership is down. I think because there's just multiple things for people to do. Also, I think the structure of late night hasn't changed. It just recycled. You know, you constantly have to have. It's just like, and I'm definitely gonna shut up after this one. The way you push your top talent is just always someone who could come in and take your spot. Right? If you're not doing what you need to be doing, there's always someone there ready to take your spot. And that keeps it fresh. That keeps you hungry, right? But you get a little lazy. It's like, oh, no, I'm the only quarterback on the team. I got to worry about nothing. You're going to get lazy. But if you knew, hey, man, if I go down, that little knee twist, I better get my little ass back up because I ain't going to have my job. So same with talent. It's like, you ain't funny. Right? And not in a mean-spirited way. It's like, you're not funny. You're not bringing them in. You're not doing nothing different. You're doing all the same recycle stuff. Now, sometimes that triggers them. It's like, well, sometimes they are not allowed to do that. So I'm not going to put it all on talent. Sometimes the producers are like, no, you can't do this. You can't do that. So you're hamstrung. But typically, when you're not making money, what we call the suits are going to be like, well, we're in dire straits right now. So do whatever you need to do to get it done. See, that's to me where we are now in 2025. That's where we're going to. It's desperate. And desperate times need desperate decisions, and people take chances in desperate times. So all of this chaos and things and all of the competition and all of these new players in the entertainment world, these new streamers and streamers on top of streamers, and then the tech people are in the game. It's like everybody's building these highways, these digital highways, but you got to have content. And the best ones will win if you open up and understand, there's a lot of talent out there. And don't get caught up in these cultural things that kept you in these little boxes of structure and only this kind of funny is funny. See, it's not gonna work nowadays because it's real easy when you're at home, right? It's real easy on YouTube. People can subscribe to my channel or not. That's very powerful. I am thankful for every subscriber I have because I remember the day when my channel had this many, 0. And every day I had to do something to finally, I was so excited when I first got that one person. It's like, wow, there's one person. I got one subscriber. And remind you, I don't know who this person is, right? This person saw what I was doing and said, click subscribe. And then you just do that. 1 turns into 2, turns into 10, turns into 15, and it just keeps building, right? So and people are like, well, why did you do your channel that way? Because I'm like, that's the best way. Because I'll never be not humble about, and I'll never take you for granted, right? Because you got to check in every once in a while just to make sure. This is probably from my teaching experience as well, too. You can't take your students for granted. Each week, you got to come with it, right? They don't care. Like when I taught at a design college, they're like, Mr. Brown, I don't care. You got a headache or you had a bad day. For these next 2 hours and 45 minutes, you're supposed to be teaching me about branding. And that's what the whole paid for thing. Now, them paying for it doesn't mean they own me. But when they're paying for that, to me, there's value. And so I have to step up my game. Even if I got a crushing headache, I got to drop a couple of Advil and go up in there and go home. I remember sometimes I was so sick that, I had enough energy for them 2 hours, 45 minutes. And then on my way home, get some chicken noodle soup and some supplies, eat that, take my Robitussin, my Advil, and collapse, and just knew that my next class was like, 12 o'clock the next day, and start again until I never missed a class. And that's probably because, my father was in the military. My father was a sergeant major in the United States Army. Rest in peace. He's buried in Arlington National Cemetery. No excuses, right? So my whole thing is like, okay, I'm going to give you everything I got. And that's what you should, and I'm not going to be in there complaining. Now, I did mention that, my cable bill, but that wasn't like, I was just kind of pissed off. And they helped me with that one. So that's when I got in my last show, I talked to you about the Roku. So I share with them stuff, but I'm not like, oh, you know what? I got a headache. Why don't y'all just read for the day? I'm not doing that. It's just not. And it's something about your mind, man, when you something just not acceptable. And again, for those of you guys who are now in high school or you have children, it's really cool to put them in something competitive. Doesn't matter what. My competitive of choice was football, but it doesn't matter what it is, because it teaches you how to do stuff when the days you just don't feel like it. It's like, I remember days playing high school football, you sore, especially in the summertime. And we had 2-a-days, means you had 2 practices. You had a morning practice and afternoon practice every day for the summer. And you just tired. And for us, you took off your equipment and your stuff and you had to hang it, and then you came back and it was still kind of wet from the morning. It's damp, it's funky. You had to put it back on again, and you don't feel like it. You're tired, you're hungry, you're sore, and your coaches are on you, and then you just find that energy to make it happen. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do that, right? But it tends to happen when you're part of something that you will be letting down someone else if you don't do your part. It could be a theater play and you got a headache and you Othello. You see what I'm saying? So that's why I'm like, I keep branching out. Whatever it is, if there's other people that are involved and you got to do your part, what's going to happen is you don't want to let them down, and you'll just find it inside of you. It's hard for me to explain this, but you will find it inside of you to just do what you got to do and just do it. No excuses, no whining, you just do it, because you don't want to let Lisa and Tina and Roderick, you don't want to let them down. So you'll do your part. And you don't feel like it, you just got on your nerves, you just broke up with someone, you just had a bad day, right? You're just like, but then you find a way, because your own selfishness is overcome with your empathy and understanding that you got to do this for someone else. And then you just do it. And then that's a skill that you bring into your just regular life. We're challenged now in our world of entertainment. And it's not like, and for me, it's like, there's not a lot of comedians out there. I was like, who says that? You know what I mean? I mean, think about it. I was talking to a lawyer yesterday. I said, think about it. I said, there's probably at least 5 funny people in every high school in America. And that's just conservative. 5, every high school. Can you imagine how many high schools are in? There's got to be. All of y'all who went to high school, y'all know 5 funny people that were in your high school? At least 5 funny people. You follow me? So who was that? And how could you do something with them? You see what I'm saying? So that's what. So when someone says there's no funny people, now they might not know the craft. You expose them, but they're out there, and we just got to give them a shot. We got to give them a place to live, right? We got to give them a format to showcase. We did it for other people before them. People found us and found the next ones, and then we just need to do that. And just it's entertainment, man. Don't get overly mental with it, because. And the reason why I say that, because there's a lot of tension out there in the world right now. We need to, that's what the entertainment and humor allows us to do, is just bring that temperature down. Because humans, we're not built to live in a spirit of fear. We're not built that way. You can't, anger and fear, you can't live that way. And we have to know how to turn that off or bring it down. And that's why these artists are so important, and especially now. So that's it, folks. I went way too far today, but as you can kind of see, I have a little passion for this. And so as this new week comes up, I'll find out what's coming up next. So broadcasters, hey man, I'm trying to do solutions here, man. Last week I said, hey, I told David Elson, hey, sell me BET, man. Got some problems with it? Sell it to me. This week, late night, viewership is down. And reach out to these brothers, Chris Rock, Kevin Hart, Mike Epps. Bring them in. Allow them the freedom to do what they do, and I guarantee you your viewership is going to go up. All right, peace out. You guys have a great Friday.